some of you know I do research in life science, and this is pretty true that our life is determined to the very, very fundamental essentials of what makes us as a person. Now, each one of us are made up of what is called as DNA, and each one of us are specifically defined by what our DNA is. Now, DNA is nothing but 3 billion letters of A's, T's, G's, and C. So it's just 3 billion letters of the sequence A, T, G, and C. That's what DNA is about. And for each of us, we have unique DNA. So some people wanted to do this research trying to understand how the sequence of DNA determines person's characteristics. So one interesting characteristic they wanted to test is how does the skin color of a person determined by the sequence in their DNA. Now, we have people with many different shades of pigmentation, ranging all the way from being like an albino to being pretty dark. So they wanted to understand what in the DNA sequence determines this variation in skin pigmentation. So they did this research, and you'll see a picture where they went to different parts of the world with people with different pigmentation. You can see the melanin pigmentation on the x-axis, where it varies a lot depending upon where you sample people from. So they sampled people from all these places, and you know what they found out? All this pigmentation variation can be mapped just to 4 letters in 4 locations of the DNA. So if you look at the first figure, you will see that there are 2 locations in these 3 billion bases where you can have a G or a T. If you have a G, you have one color. If you have a T, you have another color. Now, they found another location, once again a T and a C. And then once again, they found 2 other locations. In the next slide, you'll see, once again, just changing their DNA letter at that location will change their color. Out of these 3 billion bases, 1 nucleotide could have changed how you look. Just 1 nucleotide. Imagine that. 1 out of 3 billion. How much detail do you think God put in when He made you? King David was saying, God knit together me in my mother's womb. In my mother's womb, my DNA sequence, the letters I need to have, everything God put together. God made it that way. Now we are born, we live our life like this, and sometimes we find ourselves in situations like this, and what do? We complain. Why me, God? Why am I going through this? Why are you putting me this way? Or why did you make me this way, God? Why did you put me in this family? Why did you put me in these circumstances? Why do I look the way I look? A lot of people don't like how they look. They complain to God. They say, why do you make me this way, God? You know what Paul says in Romans chapter 9? He says something pretty strong and interesting, actually. He says, but who are you, a human being, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to the one who formed it, why did you make me like this? Does not the potter have the right to make out of the same lump of clay some pottery for special purposes and some for common use? See, God has uniquely made us. God has uniquely called us by name. And in fact, we are the created beings. God is the creator. And He's put all this fine-tuned, designed life for you and I. Who are we to say, God, why are you doing things this way? Why are you doing things that way? God has a unique call for you. God has a unique call for you. God has a unique call for me.